singing performances in Carnegie Hall and the Grand Ole Opry, to 13 years exploring more than 120 countries around the world as a singing entertainer and cruise director on luxury ships, to his current career coordinating and overseeing the financial lives of a select group of families and small businesses. In a 5 to 7 minute icebreaker entitled Traveling, please help me welcome Andy Heath.
Not for a moment do I want you to think about this as only a book. You see, it was St. Augustine who first compared this book to the world. And he said, those people who do not travel only read one page. I grew up on a hog farm in northwest Missouri, and that's where I learned what a good hard day's work was. I also learned that if you spend your day around 2,000 pigs every single day, it's really hard to get a date in high school. So I was lucky. I had another skill. I had a talent. I could sing, and fairly well, and it was something I was passionate about. In fact, I reveled in it. I absolutely loved the singing. And so even though my high school was small enough that we didn't have a music department, fortunately, I had made my way through a series of auditions that I was actually chosen for a spot on a national choir that toured Europe for the summer. They only had one solo available, and amazingly enough, I won the solo. So I did solos in Carnegie Hall, in front of the Pope at St. Peter's Basilica, at Notre Dame Cathedral, and all the great concert halls of Europe. And I'm here to tell you that with those 2 months of traveling through Europe and singing and performing, I came upon a great epiphany. And that epiphany was, this is better than raising hogs. Eventually I became a professional singer, and the woman that I married, my wife, she did too. We did commercial jingles, gosh, endlessly, and eventually wound our way to Nashville, Tennessee. But we always wanted to travel. And with 1.5 hours notice, we actually got our first opportunity. It was an agent from New York, and what he did was he booked acts internationally and on cruise ships. He was coming into Nashville for a private audition. So we did what any self-respecting entertainers would do. We crashed the audition. And he actually allowed us to sing. So you hand the music to the pianist. We sang our hearts out, and the opportunity came. And it went. But it was just another audition for us. At least that's what we thought. 6 months later, I was at a nightclub to see another friend perform, and I saw in the audience that same pianist who played our audition. So I went and I introduced myself, but before I got there, before I got very far along, he said, "You're never going to believe this, but that agent from New York that you auditioned for and I played for you, he called me last night asking about the two of you. He said, I didn't even know your names, but here's his number, you need to call him."
Wow.
We did. We called him the next morning, and in fact, we did have an offer. The offer was 7 months on the world's best cruise line, sailing all through China, Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. But, and there is a but, if you take the job, you have to leave in 7 days. We thought about it for a little bit. We said yes. And what we ended up doing for the next 13 years with that agent, that he kept us booked and busy on cruise ships, on resorts, at international conferences. For those 13 years, all told, 122 countries. It was fantastic. And for several of those years, I became a cruise director. So actually now, yes, you know my voice. I was the voice on the loudspeaker that said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome us to the Lido Lounge, where we're going to have bingo immediately following afternoon tea." Or I'll have people say, "I know you. You were Gopher on the Love Boat." And I said, "Let me correct that. I was not Gopher. I was Julie on the Love Boat." And not the skirt. I'm actually 11 years removed from that lifestyle. And I made the natural transition from cruise director to financial advisor. That's not as big of a stretch as you might think, and let me explain it in this way. As a show of hands, how many people have been on a cruise? Okay, so many of you have. Let me tell you something that you might not be aware of on a cruise ship. Whether a captain, when he comes into port, whether he's been there once or whether he's been there 100 times, he is required to bring on board a professional pilot. Now that pilot comes out in his own boat, he matches speeds with the cruise ship, and literally jumps from one vessel to the other through one of the lower hatches so he can get up to the bridge with the captain. Now, the captain, he's the master of the ship, always in charge, always the last decision, but the pilot is the expert. He knows these areas, these waters intimately, and so what he's going to do with his team shoreside, he's going to be able to maneuver that captain and his ship around the other vessels, around the unforeseen obstacles, the sandbars, the rocks, whatever they might be, to get the captain and his ship into the proper dock on time, safely with his cargo intact. And that's kind of what I do as a financial advisor. I'll explain further. My clients, they are the captain. They make the final decision. And their financial life, that's their ship. And my role is that of the pilot, the professional navigator. They're traveling in uncharted waters, but these are waters that I'm very familiar with, and so what my job is to get them from where they're at to where they want to be. Hopefully that's likely a successful retirement, on time, safe, and intact. You know, in just a few short minutes, I've only been able to cover, actually even skim, just a few chapters in my book. But if my math is right, I've got at least 9 more opportunities to dig into my book while I'm here at Toastmasters. So, you know, until then, let me leave you with some words from a world-class traveler, Mark Twain. He said, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed in the things that you did not do rather than the things that you did do. So cast aside your bow lines. Sail beyond the safe harbor. Catch the trade winds in your sails and explore. Dream. Discover.